72% of Americans over 50 make one irreversible withdrawal error that silently cuts their lifetime retirement income by nearly half. It is not about saving too little or picking the wrong stocks, but a mathematical distribution trap known as sequence of returns risk. Meet David, age 55, who diligently accumulated $800,000 in his 401k and assumed he could safely withdraw $40,000 every single year. Yet by age 68, David's nest egg was completely gone, while his neighbor with the exact same portfolio grew wealthier every month. If you want the real story behind money and lasting wealth, subscribe to the channel and let's get into it. The first fatal mistake after 50 is treating average historical stock market returns like a guaranteed fixed paycheck during your withdrawal phase. When you are accumulating assets, market crashes are massive buying opportunities because your regular payroll contributions purchase shares at steep discounts. But once you cross 50 and begin withdrawing, selling depreciated shares to pay living expenses permanently destroys those units from ever recovering. In David's first retirement year, the market dropped 20%, forcing him to liquidate 14% of his total share volume just to survive. When the market inevitably rebounded 30% the following year, David possessed far too few shares remaining to capture that vital recovery growth. Smart wealth builders avoid this tragedy by constructing a dedicated 3-year cash and short-term treasury buffer before they ever leave their primary career. Think of this cash buffer as a protective shock absorber that pays your household bills while letting your stock portfolio ride out bear markets untouched. Yet even with a solid cash buffer, David made a second catastrophic income error at age 62 by filing for early Social Security benefits. Claiming Social Security at 62 permanently locks in a 30% pay cut compared to waiting for your full retirement age of 67. Conversely, delaying your claim until age 70 earns a guaranteed 8% annual return from the federal government, fully protected against inflation. While David settled for a measly $1,400 monthly check for life, his patient neighbor waited until 70 and secured $2,480 every single month. This difference is not just about patience. It represents over $300,000 in additional guaranteed income throughout a standard 30-year retirement lifespan. But earning more income brings us directly to the third trap that blindsides Americans after 50, the dreaded retirement tax torpedo. For decades, you praised your traditional 401k for lowering your taxes, forgetting that every dollar inside is actually co-owned by the IRS. Once you reach age 73, the government forces you to take required minimum distributions whether you need the spending money or not. These forced withdrawals suddenly push your adjusted gross income into a bracket where up to 85% of your Social Security becomes taxable. Worse still, crossing specific income thresholds triggers federal RMAA surcharges, which can more than double your monthly Medicare insurance premiums overnight without warning. David was shocked when a $50,000 retirement account withdrawal resulted in paying an effective marginal tax rate of over 47%. To defuse this tax bomb, smart planners execute proactive Roth IRA conversions during the low-income gap years between retirement and age 73. By intentionally paying taxes today at lower brackets, you permanently insulate future retirement distributions and shield your Social Security benefits from unexpected taxation. Yet optimizing your taxes leads directly into mistake number 4, confusing asset allocation with the equally critical concept of asset location. While allocation dictates your mix of stocks and bonds, asset location decides precisely which account type holds each specific investment for maximum tax efficiency. Holding high-yield corporate bonds or real estate funds inside a standard taxable brokerage account forces you to surrender ordinary income taxes every single year. Instead, place tax-inefficient dividend-generating assets inside tax-deferred accounts, while reserving your Roth IRA strictly for high-growth equities that will compound completely tax-free. But even a tax-perfect portfolio will crumble if you blindly follow the famous 4% withdrawal rule without understanding its dangerous mathematical flaw. This brings us to Robert, age 62, who just retired with a $1.2 million portfolio. He relies on an 8% average market return to fund his lifestyle. But averages lie during decumulation. When you withdraw money while markets drop, you trigger the sequence of returns trap, the deadliest mathematical hazard after age 50. Imagine harvesting timber from a forest while a wildfire burns through the trees. Selling depreciated assets to pay bills permanently destroys capital that can never recover. If Robert suffers a 15% market drop during his first 2 retirement years, his $1.2 million nest egg collapses to $900,000 before any recovery even begins. Even if the stock market later rebounds with massive 20% gains, Robert's portfolio remains permanently crippled. He no longer earns compound growth on his original principal. To neutralize this hazard, smart wealth builders construct a 2-year cash and short-term bond buffer. This reserve acts as a financial firebreak during inevitable economic downturns. By spending from stable reserves when stocks plummet, you leave your equities untouched. Your shares survive the storm, fully intact, to capture the ensuing recovery. Yet even with a perfect cash buffer, Robert faces a second silent predator lurking inside his retirement accounts. It threatens to claim nearly a third of his wealth. That predator is the tax-deferred time bomb. Most 50-year-olds forget that Uncle Sam owns a strict partnership stake in every dollar inside a traditional 401k. When you deposit pre-tax money during your working years, you are merely postponing your tax bill. You are not eliminating it, and rates could rise dramatically. At age 73, the federal government springs the trap through required minimum distributions. You are forced to withdraw taxable cash, whether you need the money or not. Consider Sarah, who accumulated $1.5 million in her IRA. Her mandatory withdrawals push her into a 24% tax bracket, triggering unexpected surcharges on her Medicare premiums. This mechanism is called RMAA, the income-related monthly adjustment amount. Crossing a government income threshold by just $1 can cost you thousands in extra healthcare fees. To defuse this tax bomb, savvy investors utilize the golden low-income decade between age 60 and 70. They execute strategic Roth conversions before mandatory distributions begin. Think of Roth conversions as paying a discounted toll today to drive on a tax-free highway forever. You intentionally fill up your current low-tax brackets by shifting funds into a Roth IRA now. All future compounding grows completely tax-exempt. Your withdrawals after age 70 will never trigger Medicare surcharges or federal taxes. While controlling taxes protects your wealth, another massive income error happens right at age 62. Millions of Americans voluntarily forfeit lifetime guaranteed income out of sheer panic. Claiming Social Security at age 62 is often advertised as securing early freedom. In reality, it locks in a permanent 30% penalty on your monthly benefits for life. Let's examine the exact math. If your full retirement age check is $2,500 a month, claiming early reduces it to just $1,750 every single month. For every single year you delay claiming between age 67 and 70, your benefit increases by a guaranteed 8%. That is backed by the US government. There is nowhere else in the entire financial world where you can earn an 8% risk-free inflation-adjusted return today. It is the ultimate longevity insurance policy. Taking early benefits is like trading a winning lottery ticket for instant pocket cash. You sacrifice hundreds of thousands of dollars in cumulative lifetime retirement payout. For healthy retirees with average life expectancy, delaying until 70 maximizes total wealth. This strategy also provides maximum surviving spouse protection when one partner passes away. When David delays claiming until age 70, his monthly check swells to $3,100. That guaranteed foundation covers his basic living expenses indefinitely, regardless of stock market volatility. Once your Social Security floor is securely established, you must confront the fourth major error. Many retirees after age 50 make a fatal pivot toward excessive conservatism. Terrified of stock market losses, aging savers dump their growth assets. They move hundreds of thousands of dollars into low-yielding cash and long-term treasury bonds. This creates the dangerous fixed income trap. Over a 30-year retirement, inflation acts like a slow-moving glacier, silently crushing the real purchasing power of your stagnant cash. If inflation averages just 3% annually, a $100,000 cash reserve loses half of its purchasing power within 24 years. Safe cash becomes guaranteed long-term wealth destruction. To preserve lasting wealth, your portfolio must retain a permanent growth engine. Even in your 60s and 70s, holding quality equities is mandatory to outpace inflation. Balancing this growth engine against sequence of returns risk requires a precise withdrawal strategy. Yet even perfect asset allocation collapses if you ignore the healthcare multiplier. To bridge that 8-year income gap from age 62 to 70 without selling equities during a market downturn, you need a precisely timed, tax-efficient withdrawal sequence. This brings us to the third major retirement mistake after age 50. Treating your traditional 401k balance like a standard bank account instead of a tax liability. Consider David, a 63-year-old engineer who accumulated $1.5 million in his pre-tax 401k. mistakenly believing that entire balance belonged exclusively to him for his retirement years. The brutal mechanism here is tax-deferred compounding. While your savings grew tax-free for decades, the IRS was quietly accumulating a substantial equity stake in your account. When David withdraws $100,000 annually for living expenses, ordinary income rates apply immediately, shrinking his actual spendable cash to roughly $76,000 after federal and state taxes. The real danger is not just today's tax bracket, it is the ticking time bomb of required minimum distributions, which trigger at age 73 under federal law. At age 73, the government forces you to withdraw a specific percentage of your pre-tax accounts every single year, regardless of whether you need the money. If David leaves his $1.5 million untouched until age 73, compounding at 7%, his account swells to nearly $2.9 million, setting up an enormous mandatory tax bill. His very first required distribution would force over $109,000 of taxable income onto his tax return, instantly pushing him into a significantly higher federal tax bracket. This forced income spike triggers our fourth critical mistake: ignoring the Medicare IRMA cliff, a hidden surcharge that quietly penalizes higher earners 2 years later. IRMA stands for Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount, and it acts as an invisible mandatory tax on your Medicare Part B and Part 500 insurance premiums. Because Medicare calculates premiums using income from 2 years prior, David's age 73 distribution spike will dramatically inflate his monthly healthcare costs at age 75. Crossing an IRMA threshold by even a single dollar can add over $1,800 per person in annual Medicare surcharges, draining thousands from a retired couple's budget. To defuse this tax time bomb, smart money uses the decade between age 60 and 70 to execute systematic low-bracket Roth IRA conversions. By converting $40,000 annually during these lower income gap years, you intentionally pay taxes now at the 12% or 22% rate to lock in permanent tax-free growth. Think of a Roth conversion like paying a discounted toll before entering a highway, rather than facing an unpredictable skyrocketing toll at the end of your road. Every dollar shifted into a Roth IRA is completely insulated from future required distributions, ensuring the IRS can never force you to liquidate assets prematurely. Yet, moving money too aggressively brings us to mistake number 5, failing to manage healthcare subsidies under the Affordable Care Act before Medicare begins at 65. If you retire at 60, your health insurance premiums are often heavily subsidized by federal tax credits tied directly to your annual reported income. If David executes a massive $100,000 Roth conversion at age 61, that added income could completely disqualify him from subsidies, costing him $12,000 in out-of-pocket premiums. True wealth optimization requires balancing Roth conversions against healthcare subsidy thresholds, maximizing tax-free growth without accidentally forfeiting thousands in medical premium assistance. Once your tax buckets are balanced, we face the 6th major income mistake after 50, falling into the cash trap due to fear of market volatility. When retirees hit age 60, panic over potential stock market crashes often drives them to dump equities and hoard cash in 4% certificates of deposit. While a 4% yield feels safe and reassuring today, real healthcare and lifestyle inflation for retirees actually erodes purchasing power at roughly 6% annually. Holding too much cash is like trying to run up a down escalator. Your balance looks stable on paper, but your actual buying power silently sinks. Over a 25-year retirement, average inflation will cut the real value of a static $500,000 cash reserve in half, guaranteeing an eventual shortfall in your later years. To survive a 3-decade retirement without running out of money, your portfolio must maintain a significant equity growth engine, typically holding between 50% and 60% in stocks. Instead of all-or-nothing market timing, authoritative wealth management relies on a 3-bucket cash buffer strategy to completely neutralize short-term stock market volatility. Bucket 1 holds exactly 2 years of living expenses in high-yield cash, guaranteeing you never have to sell depressed equities during a recession or market correction. Meanwhile, Bucket 2 holds 5 years of treasury bonds to replenish cash naturally, leaving Bucket 3 invested in global equities for uninterrupted decades-long compound growth. While Robert mastered his Roth conversions, he just triggered another retirement trap at age 58, shifting his entire $500,000 portfolio into high-yield dividend stocks. The allure is intoxicating: generate an 8% yield, collect $40,000 annually in cash, and theoretically never touch your underlying principal for 30 years. But Wall Street rarely hands out a safe 8% yield. Unusually high dividends frequently signal distressed companies compensating for plunging stock prices and eroding market share. Think of a dividend like withdrawing cash from an ATM. On the exact ex-dividend date, the company's share price mechanically drops by the exact payout amount. In a taxable brokerage account, mandatory dividend payouts force you to pay income taxes every single year, systematically dragging down your long-term compound growth rate. When a recession hits, distressed firms slash those generous payouts first, leaving Robert with both a 40% capital loss and zero cash flow overnight. Seasoned wealth builders ignore yield traps and focus on total return, selling appreciated shares as homemade dividends only when they actually need cash. This total return approach puts you in total control of your tax bill, allowing you to harvest long-term capital gains at favorable 0% tax brackets. Yet avoiding stock risk entirely leads directly to an even more dangerous post-50 mistake: fleeing 100% into cash certificates of deposit and government bonds. Terrified of experiencing a 2008-style crash right before retirement, millions of savers lock their wealth into 4% yield bonds, believing their money is completely safe. But safety is an illusion when a 3% inflation rate and a 22% federal tax bracket combine to silently erode your real purchasing power every single year. By the rule of 72, a persistent 3% inflation rate mathematically halves the purchasing power of your cash within exactly 24 years of retirement. If Robert retires at age 60 with $1 million in bonds, that same $40,000 interest check will buy only $20,000 worth of groceries by age 84. Furthermore, long-term bonds carry severe interest rate risk. When interest rates rise by just 2%, a 10-year treasury bond loses roughly 16% of its market value. To survive a 3-decade retirement without running out of money, smart investors build what wealth economists call a dynamic retirement bond tent. 5 years before retirement, you gradually build a 3-year cash and bond buffer to protect against early market crashes and sequence of returns risk. Once safely past those first critical retirement years, you intentionally spend down that bond buffer, allowing your stock allocation to rise again to beat inflation. This contrarian strategy ensures you never sell stocks during a bear market while maintaining the growth engine required for your final 20 years of life. Yet, even a perfectly constructed bond tent collapses overnight if you ignore the single largest unpredictable expense facing Americans after age 50: runaway healthcare costs. Fidelity's latest data reveals an average retiring couple at age 65 needs an astonishing $315,000 saved exclusively to cover out-of-pocket medical expenses throughout retirement. Crucially, that $315,000 estimate completely excludes long-term care or nursing home stays, which currently average over $100,000 per year in a private facility. The most fatal mistake happens between age 50 and 65, when early retirees lose employer health coverage and face crushing private insurance premiums before Medicare begins. When Robert left his corporate job at 58, he assumed COBRA would bridge the gap, only to discover those subsidized benefits terminate after exactly 18 months. Forced onto the ACA exchange, Robert learned that poorly timed IRA withdrawals increased his modified adjusted gross income, destroying his eligibility for crucial health insurance subsidies. To neutralize this healthcare threat, savvy savers leveraged the health savings account, the only triple tax advantage wealth building vehicle in the entire US tax code. You get an upfront tax deduction on contributions, your money grows completely tax-free, and withdrawals for qualified medical expenses are never taxed by the IRS. Better yet, once you turn 55, IRS rules permit an extra $1,000 annual catch-up contribution, allowing a married couple to stash away over $9,300 yearly. But the real secret is never spending your HSA balance during your working years. Instead, pay routine medical bills out of pocket and save the receipts. Because the IRS imposes no time limit on reimbursement, your HSA compounds in index funds for decades, transforming into a tax-free medical ATM for your 70s. This strategy shields your portfolio from routine healthcare shocks, but it still leaves your life savings completely exposed to the catastrophic costs of long-term nursing care. Beyond Social Security timing lies a hidden income trap that catches retirees at age 65, the Medicare 2-year look-back rule. Your premiums are determined long before you ever enroll. Known as IRMAA, this formula calculates your Part B and Part 500 premiums using tax returns from 2 years prior. What you earn today dictates your future medical bills. Consider David, who decides at 63 to withdraw an extra $50,000 from his traditional IRA for a kitchen remodel. He assumes he will only pay standard income taxes. That single withdrawal pushes David's modified adjusted gross income over the $103,000 federal threshold. He just tripped a silent financial wire without even realizing it. 2 years later, at age 65, the government mails his Medicare premium notice. Because of that earlier kitchen remodel, David is slammed with a massive monthly surcharge. Unlike graduated tax brackets, IRMAA operates as an absolute cliff. Earning just $1 over the threshold triggers the higher premium rate across the entire year. Think of it like exceeding a luggage weight limit at the airport by a single ounce and paying for an entire extra seat on the plane. For David, this sudden health surcharge permanently consumes his annual cost of living increase. His Social Security check stays stagnant, while everyday inflation erodes his real purchasing power. The strategic defense requires managing capital gains and ROT conversions between ages 60 and 62. This window is your primary opportunity to control future health costs. Yet, even savvy retirees who navigate Medicare cliffs often stumble into a much deeper mathematical hazard: the rigid execution of the 4% withdrawal rule. Blindly withdrawing a fixed percentage, adjusted annually for inflation, ignores the underlying valuation of your portfolio. In volatile markets, rigid withdrawal schedules destroy capital prematurely. When markets drop 20%, pulling $40,000 from a $1 million nest egg forces you to liquidate 25% more shares than in a flat year. Financial planners call this sequence of returns risk. Selling depreciated assets to fund lifestyle expenses permanently removes those shares from ever participating in a market recovery. Imagine burning the wooden support beams of your ship to keep the furnace warm during a winter storm. Eventually, the entire hull collapses under the pressure. To survive market downturns without sacrificing your lifestyle, authoritative wealth builders replace static formulas with dynamic guardrails. Flexibility is the ultimate currency of longevity. Under a guardrail system, if your portfolio value drops below a specific threshold, you automatically trim discretionary spending by just 10% for that year. Implementing a 10% spending reduction acts like a circuit breaker. It preserves core capital during bear markets, extending your portfolio survival by more than a decade. Once stocks inevitably rebound, the guardrail lifts, and your normal distribution resumes. You never sacrifice baseline security, only temporary luxury expenditures. But even a perfectly hedged portfolio can be dismantled by an overlooked structural flaw: planning your income solely around married filing jointly tax brackets. Meet Sarah and Mark, both 62, living comfortably on $120,000 of combined retirement income. They assume their current 22% tax bracket is permanent. They fail to account for the mathematical reality of surviving spouse economics. When one partner passes away, the IRS drastically rewrites the rules of engagement. Upon Mark's death, Sarah loses his Social Security check, keeping only her higher benefit. Her household income drops modestly to $90,000 overnight. However, because Sarah must now file as a single taxpayer, her tax brackets compress severely. She faces a higher marginal rate on significantly less income. Wealth advisors label this the widower's tax penalty. It is like paying rent on an apartment after your roommate leaves, but the landlord raises the fee. The danger multiplies exponentially when required minimum distributions begin at age 73. Inherited traditional IRAs force massive taxable withdrawals onto a single filing status. For Sarah, those mandatory distributions push her directly into top tax brackets and trigger severe IRMAA surcharges simultaneously. Her retirement security is caught in a dual squeeze. Avoiding this surviving spouse trap demands proactive tax diversification while both partners are alive. You must treat tax-deferred accounts as joint liabilities with compounding interest. The golden window occurs during the gap years between retirement and age 73. Here, couples can systematically convert traditional IRAs into tax-free Roth accounts. By intentionally filling low tax brackets today, you permanently eliminate future RMD burdens. You insulate the surviving spouse from catastrophic tax bracket compression down the road. Still executing a masterclass in tax conversions, cannot protect you if your retirement income relies on the most misunderstood financial vehicle in America today. The final income mistake after 50 is treating your portfolio like a savings account. Instead, convert that nest egg into an automated, emotion-free monthly paycheck machine. When stocks drop 20%, retirees without a structured cash buffer panic. Like Robert, they sell equities at market lows just to buy weekly groceries. To prevent forced selling, implement the 3-bucket defense mechanism immediately. Hold exactly 24 months of baseline living expenses in yielding short-term treasury bills. This cash moat acts like a hydraulic shock absorber. While stocks bleed, you spend safe bond yield, giving your growth assets time to recover untouched. Yet even a protected portfolio fails if you ignore compounding inflation. A fixed $50,000 withdrawal loses nearly half its real purchasing power over 20 years. Replace rigid spending rules with dynamic valuation guardrails. Increase your annual paycheck by 3% during bull markets, but freeze raises whenever your portfolio dips. This simple spending flexibility is the mathematical lever that lets Robert safely extract an extra $600,000 across his 30-year retirement journey. This exposes the most ironic mistake after 50, chronic underspending. Hoarding cash out of fear means sacrificing vibrant retirement years just to die with excess millions. To break this scarcity mindset, establish a guilt-free dividend. Automatically sweep 4% of annual portfolio gains into a dedicated lifestyle account for travel and family. Remember that money is simply stored life energy. If you never convert those compounded dollars into shared memories, while healthy financial independence loses its true purpose. By pairing dynamic spending guardrails with short-term cash buffers, Robert secures an unshakable monthly income. His strategy guarantees lasting wealth that easily outlives any market crash. This automated income fortress lets you master retirement without fear. Hit like for calm financial education and tell us below which income mistake were you almost making. Subscribe for more lasting wealth strategies, and remember, build slowly, live richly. Next week we expose the hidden Medicare surcharge trap that silently drains retirees every single month.